Do you feel that no matter how hard you fight to keep your peace, someone or something always shows up to test your limits? It's as if the world conspires to provoke you, steal your calm, and drag you into battles you never asked to fight. Deep down, you know that reacting in the heat of the moment only feeds the cycle of conflict, yet it's hard to resist the urge to defend yourself. This silent war, where the greatest enemy is the loss of self-control, is fought daily by those seeking serenity in a world that thrives on chaos. What if true mastery wasn't about having the last word, but about staying silent? What if silence wasn't a sign of weakness, but of inner strength, a mind that chooses where and how to spend its energy? Strategic silence is the invisible weapon that confuses attackers because they expect a reaction, not a calm presence. And in that quiet space, karma itself begins to work, returning to each person what they have sown. If you want to learn how to face provocations without losing yourself and turn silence into your greatest defense, subscribe now and stay until the end. Today you will discover 8 situations where staying silent is the most powerful choice you can make, and how this simple act can change not only the results, but also who you become in the process. Prepare to understand the true reach of silence and how it connects to life's invisible justice. First situation. When provocation is meant to test your limits, Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." This is where silence becomes an invisible sword. Imagine someone constantly trying to poke at your wounds, at work, at home, or on social media. Their intention is not to resolve anything, but to provoke your reaction. By responding, you hand over control of your peace to someone unworthy, allowing their anger to dictate your emotional state. Think of an online argument. An offensive comment appears, full of accusations and distortions. Your impulse is to respond, correct, defend yourself. But the moment you type your first word, you're already trapped in the game the other person set up. Silence, in this case, is refusing to play a game that leads nowhere, one that only feeds the other person's vanity and ego. Stoicism teaches that we shouldn't fight every battle, only those with purpose. By staying silent, you show that your energy is too precious to waste on small wars. You choose clarity over confusion, self-discipline over impulse. This doesn't mean accepting injustice. It means knowing that life and karma has its own way of settling scores. When you answer provocation with silence, something powerful happens. The other person drowns in their own words. Without fuel for the conflict, the flame dies out. What remains is the image of someone who kept their dignity intact while the aggressor lost themselves in excess. This posture intimidates more than any counterattack because it demonstrates real strength, not theatrical bravado. Resilience is not only resisting the blow, but deciding which blows aren't even worth taking. It's choosing not to carry weights that aren't yours, not to absorb poisons meant to corrode your peace. Silence is like an invisible wall. It protects without wearing you down. Now that you understand how silence dismantles the game of those who provoke, let's explore another situation where it becomes your best defense. When gossip threatens your name and your peace. Second situation. When gossip tries to destroy your image, Seneca said, "Other people's opinions are their problem, not yours." And nothing better describes the wise stance towards gossip. When rumors start circulating about you, the natural impulse is to justify yourself, explain every detail, prove your innocence. But each explanation is like wind in the sails of a ship that shouldn't even be at sea. By trying to clear your name to those who've already decided to stain it, you show you've been affected. Imagine a workplace where a colleague, out of envy or insecurity, spreads half-truths or twists facts to diminish you. The temptation is to confront, show evidence, defend yourself loudly. But the moment you do, you reveal that the gossip touched your pride. Here silence becomes a wall, not only preserving your peace but also allowing the lies to collapse under their own weight. This silence is not passivity, it's strategy. It stops you from stooping to the level of those who need to destroy others to feel taller. It's trusting that in time, the truth will surface while the gossiper drowns in their own contradictions. Inner clarity is worth more than a reputation shaped by other people's mouths. When you refuse to react, you send the silent message that your life is guided by principles, not opinions. People start to notice the difference between those who talk too much and those who live with coherence. In this contrast, lies lose their strength. After all, nothing disarms gossip more than a target who remains unshaken. The self-discipline to not answer every verbal attack is a daily Stoic practice. It's the exercise of controlling your own narrative without letting others write it with dirty ink. You don't need to correct every story told about you. You just need to live so that any false story sounds absurd to those who truly know your essence. And now that you understand the power of staying silent in the face of gossip, let's talk about another situation where silence is sharper than any argument, when someone's anger tries to drag you into an emotional abyss. Third situation, when someone's anger tries to drag you into the emotional abyss, Epictetus reminds us, it's not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. Many times, another person's fury has nothing to do with you. It's the storms they carry inside. Even so, we're tempted to match their rhythm, raise our voice, and react with equal intensity. The problem is that by doing so, we surrender control and let their emotions dictate our actions. Picture an aggressive driver, honking, shouting, gesturing, almost inviting you to lose your calm too. If you respond in the same tone, you not only validate their outburst, but also compromise your own peace. Silence, in this case, is a shield that stops their anger from finding an echo inside you. The Stoic teaching is clear: never let someone else's emotional state dictate yours. Silence in the face of anger isn't cowardice, it's mastery over your own mind. It's knowing that every impulsive response is a win for the one who wants to see you lose balance. By choosing silence, you break the chain that feeds the conflict. This stance can also act as a mirror. Often, the absence of reaction exposes the other person's irrationality, making them realize they're fighting alone. This not only ends the clash faster, but also preserves your energy for battles that truly matter. Anger is fire. Silence is the absence of fuel. Practicing silence in the face of rage takes emotional strength and clarity of purpose. It's remembering that your peace is too valuable to trade for a moment of pride. Those who master this self-control don't just survive attacks, they emerge stronger, intact, and above all, free. And now that you see how silence can disarm even the most intense fury, let's move to another situation where it becomes an invisible act of power, when momentary injustice tries to force your immediate reaction. Fourth situation. When momentary injustice tries to force your immediate reaction, Marcus Aurelius taught, if it's endurable, then endure it. Let time take care of the rest. Many times faced with injustice, our first reaction is to act fast, to respond on the spot as if speed proves courage. But haste is the enemy of clarity. In the heat of the moment, it's easy to say what shouldn't be said, make poor choices, and regret them later. Silence here is like hitting the brakes before falling into an emotional cliff. Imagine a coworker getting credit for something you did. Instinct screams for you to defend yourself right there, in front of everyone. But while this reaction may seem fair, it can come at a cost. Outrage steals your calm, and words spoken under its influence can look like a personal attack, weakening your case. By choosing strategic silence, you buy time to think, gather facts, and act with intelligence, not impulse. Stoicism reminds us that true strength lies in mastering the mind, not in the speed of response. Staying silent in the face of injustice doesn't mean you accept it. It means you choose the right moment to act, with clarity and precision. It's like an archer waiting for the perfect moment to release the arrow, not because they fear, but because they know every move must be exact. When you hold back and observe, something interesting happens. The injustice starts revealing itself. Details emerge, witnesses appear, and the truth finds its way. When it's finally your turn to speak, your words carry more weight and respect because they weren't thrown in a moment of anger. Silence here is a vote of confidence in the invisible justice time brings. It's believing that acting with calm increases your chances of winning, while reacting in haste only fuels the error. Patience turns momentary injustice into a silent, lasting victory. And now that you understand the power of staying silent in the face of immediate injustices, let's explore another situation where silence is even more transformative. When someone's emotional immaturity tries to pull you into useless arguments. Fifth situation. When someone's emotional immaturity tries to pull you into useless arguments, Seneca wrote, "Don't argue with a fool. From afar, no one will know who is who." As harsh as it sounds, this perfectly describes the waste of energy that comes from entering debates with no real purpose. Emotional immaturity shows when someone insists on turning every minor disagreement into a verbal war. There's no search for truth or resolution, only the need to be right at any cost. Silence here is more than prudence, it's self-preservation. Imagine a family conversation that starts with a simple topic, but suddenly turns into a battlefield of opinions. No matter what you say, the other person is determined not to listen. In this case, every word you add is just another brick in the wall of misunderstanding. By staying silent, you refuse to keep building a wall that only separates and exhausts. Stoicism teaches us to choose wisely where to invest our energy. Engaging in useless arguments is like trying to put out fire with gasoline. The more you speak, the stronger the flame becomes. Silence here is like calm water that slowly extinguishes the fire of provocation, showing that peace is worth more than ego. When you refuse to engage in this kind of clash, something shifts. The other person may feel victorious in the moment, but in the long run they realize they lost the chance for a real dialogue. More importantly, you preserve your serenity without carrying the weight of words spoken in vain. This choice requires self-discipline and emotional strength because it's tempting to have the last word. But the last word isn't always the wisest one. Often, silence is the true conclusion, showing that you don't need to prove anything to anyone. And understanding how to protect yourself from empty debates, we now move to another situation where silence becomes your greatest ally. When someone's pain is expressed through attacks on you. Sixth situation. When someone's pain is expressed through attacks on you, Epictetus reminds us, "What harms me is not what happens to me, but how I interpret it." Many times when someone attacks you, the root isn't real hatred, but a deep pain that found in you a convenient target. Frustrated, hurt, or insecure people often channel their suffering into criticism and aggression. Discharging this negative energy onto another may be their only way to feel some temporary relief. Picture a friend who, in a moment of anger, throws harsh and unfair words at you. Deep down, you know the real problem isn't you, it's the painful situation they're going through. Responding in the same tone not only worsens the conflict, but also closes the door to understanding what lies beneath. Silence here is an act of maturity. You choose not to respond to pain with more pain. Strategic silence in the face of attacks born from pain doesn't mean tolerating disrespect indefinitely. It means waiting for the right moment, allowing the dust to settle and letting the person recover from their emotional storm. It's giving space for them to realize on their own that they were wrong, without adding new barriers to that realization. Stoicism teaches us not to carry someone else's anger as if it were ours. By keeping your composure and not returning the attack, you preserve yourself and often open the way for the relationship to heal. Emotional strength here is about not letting another's suffering cloud your clarity. With this posture, you not only avoid greater conflict, but also show silent empathy. It's the wisdom of understanding that sometimes the best response to a scream is the echo of silence, because in it lies the understanding that noise can never bring. And now that we've seen how silence can transform attacks into opportunities for empathy, let's move to another situation where it is essential. When unjust criticism tries to shape who you are. Seventh situation. When unjust criticism tries to shape who you are. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it's true, accept it. If it's a lie, ignore it." The problem is that in the heat of criticism, we tend to forget this wisdom and react as if every word about us were a personal attack. Unjust criticism carries a special weight because it strikes at our human need to be understood and valued. But if you live to answer every voice that tries to define you, you'll always be building your identity in the hands of others. Imagine publishing a project you poured your heart into, only for someone to label it as worthless or poorly done without any basis. The instinct is to explain, prove, and argue. But doing so turns that unfair opinion into a debate, giving it more space than it deserves. Silence here sends a clear message. Your view doesn't define me. Stoicism teaches us to separate what's under our control from what's not. The unfair opinion is beyond our control. Our reaction is entirely within it. By staying silent, you show that you don't need validation from those who don't know the truth. It's choosing to stand firm in your values, even when external voices try to distort them. The self-discipline to not react to unjust criticism is like a shield that preserves clarity. Observers see that you're not swayed by shifting winds of opinion, and that inspires respect. Strategic silence here is a silent statement of self-confidence. When you stop trying to convince those who won't listen, you free yourself to invest energy into what truly matters. In the end, the best answer to unfair criticism is to keep living and producing so consistently that time itself disproves it. Now that you see how silence can protect your identity from unfair criticism, let's move to the final situation, where it becomes not just protection, but liberation. When the end of a cycle demands that you leave without explanations. Eighth situation. When the end of a cycle demands that you leave without explanations, Seneca reminds us, sometimes you have to leave, not because you don't care, but because you've cared too much. There are moments in life when no matter how hard you try, a relationship, a job, or a phase has simply run its course. The instinct is to explain, justify, write long speeches so the other person understands. But in reality, those who require explanations are rarely willing to truly accept them. Picture a worn-out relationship where every conversation repeats the same problems with no real change. You could spend hours arguing, but nothing you say will alter the core reality. Silence here isn't escape. It's acceptance that peace lies in leaving, not in explaining. It's letting closure come through action, not words. Stoicism teaches us not to tie our freedom to the need to be understood by everyone. Leaving in silence is choosing serenity over external validation. It's understanding that over-explaining is an attempt to control something that was never yours to control, another person's perception. This type of silence is liberating. It marks the start of a new chapter, where your energy is no longer spent on justifications, but on building something new. It's also a sign of maturity, knowing what you want and not needing anyone's approval to move forward. When you close a chapter without noise, the world notices. People may create stories, invent motives, but while they talk, you're already far ahead, moving on. And in that silent progress, karma works, returning to you the peace you sought. And now that we've gone through the 8 situations where silence is your greatest strength, it's time to weave these lessons together in our reflective conclusion. Remember that initial pain, constantly explaining yourself to people who don't even deserve your silence. Now, after these 8 situations, you understand that silence is not the absence of a response, but the most powerful response there is. What once looked like weakness now reveals itself as mastery of the mind, resilience, and clarity. You no longer need to enter every battle to prove something. You simply choose the ones truly worthy of your energy and let the rest dissolve under their own weight. True power isn't about convincing others, it's about conquering yourself. It's the self-discipline that turns provocation into learning, injustice into strategy, and the end of a cycle into liberation. When you refuse to react impulsively, karma works on your behalf, not as some distant mystical force, but as the natural consequence of choices made with awareness and balance. Life rewards those who know how to wait, those who trust in the justice of time and the strength of their own peace. If you've made it this far, you've already stepped ahead of many. Now I want you to comment, I choose Stoic strength to show that you're ready to live with wisdom, courage, and serenity. From today on, every silence of yours won't be empty. It will be a conscious act of power, a clear message that your peace is not for sale.